Hello. Are we ready for this? Today I'm going to be reviewing some Algebra 1 STAAR problems from a test that was administered in May of 2021. And in this test, I'm going to go over how to solve some of these problems and also how to check your work. And it is very important for you to go back and check your work, and maybe you can do this with various methods, and maybe you can use a calculator since calculators are allowed on this test. And so we'll go through some examples for this. Okay? Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at problem number 1 on this test. In this test, it's a multiple choice questions, and you're to select the best answer for this. The first question says, which expression is equivalent to the square root of 184? And sometimes a student will take a calculator and say, well, the square root of 184, that's about 13.56, something like that. And none of the answers are there. Well, you have to simplify this. And one thing that we can do is we can take the square root of 184, we can break that into factors. Square root of 184 is going to be, the square root of 184 is going to be, we can break 184 into factors. 184 is 2 times 92. So we have the square root of each one of those, okay? And then 92 is 2 times 46. And we have the square root of each one of those. And so this square root of 2 times this square root of 2 is now square root of 4 times square root of 46. And of course the square root of 4 is 2, so this would be 2 times square root of 46. And we'll look at the answers, and it looks like 2 times square root of 46, that looks like that's answer B. And if you take your calculator and multiply 2 times square root of 46, you will get, the answer is about 13.56, so it checks. So this is one way that you can check using your calculator, is by taking 2 times square root of 46. Of course, if you didn't know how to do all the simplifying of the radicals, you could just take 2 times square root of 46 and see if it gives you this number, 13.5, or 4 times the square root of 23, that doesn't work, and 4 times square root of 46 on the calculator, that doesn't work. And so the answer was B, 2 times the square root of 46, and make sure you use your calculator to check and verify. The graph of a linear function is shown on the grid, and which function is best represented by this graph? And so you have the equations here, the answers, and you have to match it up with this line. Now looking at this line, anytime we see a line going down from left to right, that's a negative slope. And anytime that you see a line going from left to right going up, that's a positive slope. So in this case, we know already that this is going down from left to right. We know we're looking for a negative slope, and so this one has a negative slope, and so does this one here. So we can rule out the first two answers because those slopes are positive. And let's take a look at the y-intercept. It looks like the y-intercept is at 4. And right here you have a plus 4. So it looks to me like the answer should be J. Now, as a way to check, what you want to do is you want to graph this line on your calculator. Graph this line. You can graph y is equal to a negative 2/3 x plus 4 and compare it to this line. And you'll see that it's exactly the same as this line. You'll notice that the y-intercept is at 4 and the x-intercept is here at 6. So you have a negative slope and you have negative 2/3 x plus 4. The answer was J for number 2. Okay, so problem number 3 says the values in the table represent a linear relationship between x and y. And what is the rate of change of y with respect to x? So rate of change, what are we looking for? We're looking for slope. Rate of change is slope. And the slope formula from your formula chart is y2 minus y1, difference in the y's, over x2 minus x1. And you have 4 different x values and 4 different y values. It really doesn't matter which one you use, but let's say that this one here would be x1 and this one here would be x2. And so if we subtract negative 6.5 minus a negative, minus a negative be plus 8.5. Let me slide this over a little bit. Over a negative 7, this is going to be y1, this is going to be y2. So then we're going to have wait a minute. I think I did y2 minus y1. So this is a common mistake. Sometimes students will put the x's here, the y's here, and it's the other way around. So the y's go here. So remember, these are x values. So the x values actually are in the denominator. So I'm going to have negative 6.5 plus the 8.5. Why is it plus 8.5? Minus a minus 8.5. And the y's would be a negative 72 minus a negative 92. So on your calculator, minus a minus, that's plus. You're actually going to have 92 minus 72. So it's going to be a 20 here. And over here, this is going to be 8.5 minus 6.5. That's 2. Now you can use your calculator and do all the addition, subtraction, but you're going to get 20 divided by 2, which is what? 10. So the answer here should be 10. And should be answer A. So that represents the slope, which is what? The rate of change of y with respect to x. And do you have to use those 2 points? No, we could have used these other 2 points over here, any 2 points. And so it doesn't matter which ones, you're going to get the same answer. Is there a way of checking? Yes, when you finish the test, you can come back and check, and you pick 2 different points. You could pick this pair and this pair and see if you get the same thing. And I'm sure you will, because the answer for number 3 is A. Okay, moving along to number 4. We have given that we have g of x, a function g of x, as x squared minus 6x minus 16. Which statement is true? So one of these is factored correctly. And if you look at the answers here, your zeros are either 8, plus or minus 8, or plus or minus 2. And so your factors are x plus 8, x plus or minus 8, or x plus or minus 2. So by looking at the answers, we know that the factors will be 8 and 2, and one's positive, one's negative, because this right here is a negative 16, so we need to have one positive and one negative. So I'm going to have x times x for the x squared, and then for the negative 16, I can take negative 8 times 2. I'll try that. Negative 8 times plus 2. And see if that works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply x minus 8 times x plus 2 and see if it gives me that. Negative 8 times 2 gives me the negative 16. And then right here I have a minus 8x. And then if I multiply the outer, that gives me a plus 2x. And that will give me a minus 6x, which is the middle term. So that looks like that's factored correctly. And so we're looking for the zeros. So we set those factors equal to 0. So x minus 8 is equal to 0. And the other factor, x plus 2, is equal to 0. And if you add 8 here, and you add 8 here, x equals to 8. So that's going to be a 0. Minus 2 here and a minus 2 here. X is equal to a negative 2. Okay? And so it looks like the zeros are at negative 2 and at 8. So it looks like it should be right here. And the factors were x plus 2 and x minus 8. So the answer should be H. Okay. Now, is there a way of checking this, or is there another way of doing this if you forgot how to factor, or maybe you want to do this a different way? Yes, there is a way of doing this, and let's take a way we can do this a little bit differently. Okay, a way that you could check this with your calculator is maybe you could graph this g of x, graph that as y equals to x squared minus 6x minus 16. And when you graph it, you're going to see that the graph crosses at x equals to 8 and at x equals to negative 2. And so those are the zeros. So the zeros are at negative 2 and at 8. And another thing that you could do is you could look at the table of values, and you'll see that when x is 2, y is 0. And when x is 8, y is 0. And so if you look at the table of values in the calculator, you'll see negative 2, 0, and 8, 0, which would be these points right here. So, therefore, the answer was H. The zeros are at negative 2 and 8. If you like this video, give me a like here, and leave any comments if you have any comments on any of these videos. Okay, problem number 5 says, which ordered pair is in the solution set of 8x plus 16y is greater than 32? Okay, well, one thing is maybe you could graph this on a calculator. What we'll do here in this problem is that we'll graph it on this grid that's given to us. And we'll say, okay, if y is 0, x is what? It looks like x is 4. 8 times 4 is 32. So when x is 4, this is the x-intercept right here. And if x is 0, what is y? If x is 0, y should be 2, since 16 times 2 is 32. So that would be your y-intercept right here at 0, 2. So what we have here is we're going to have, is this a solid line or dashed line for inequalities? Well, if it's greater than, it's just going to be dashed because it doesn't include the points. So I'll just draw little dots here. And I'll draw little dots here. Or maybe what I'll do is I'll highlight that right here. This is a dashed line. And we want greater than. So y would be greater than negative 8x plus 32. So it looks like it would be every point above this. So it would be this shaded region. So therefore, we're looking for points that are in that region. Okay. 0, 2 would be right here. And you can actually plug 0, 2 there. 16 times 2 is 32. Is 32 greater than 32? No. So this one would be ruled out. Negative 3, 5. So if I go to negative 3 and 5, it would be somewhere right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to negative 3 and 5. I'm going to plug in the values for this. 8 times negative 3, that's negative 24. And then 5 for y. 16 times 5 is 80. Is that greater than 32? So what is 80 minus 24? That's going to be 56, so that is greater. Actually, this is not drawn on a scale, but I'm assuming the point would be somewhere in here, and that is greater than 32. So it looks to me like this is the correct answer. But as a way of checking, what we're going to do is we're going to also plug in negative 1 and 1. If x is negative 1, you're going to get negative 8. 8 times negative 1. And then plus 16 times y. which is y is 1. So you're going to have 8. Is that greater than 32? I don't think so. It is not. And the last one is 4, 0. X is 4, y is 0. 8 times 4 is 32. And y is 0. So is 32 greater than 32? And the answer is no. And so I think the best way of doing this is just to take these points and plug them back into your equation. So use your calculator and plug in for x and y and see if you get something greater than 32. And so we said the answer for this one was B. For number 7, two characteristics of a quadratic function p are given. So a quadratic function here, we know that we have something x squared, and the axis of symmetry is given. And let me see. And function p has exactly 1, 0. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so based on this information, which graph could represent p? So all of these are open down, and we need an axis of symmetry of x equals -3. Well, the axis of symmetry goes right down the middle. Right here, x equals -3. Right here, x equals 3. Right here, x equals 3. And right here, x equals -3. So right away, we know that it's not going to be this one, and it's not going to be this one, because axis of symmetry, x equals to -3. So is it A or is it B? Well, we know that the function has exactly 1, 0. Right here, you're going to get 1, 0 at -3. This one will have a 0 here and a 0 here. This one has 2 zeros. This one has 1, 0. Since we're looking for 1, 0, the answer has to be A. Okay? If you have any questions on these, just leave any comments in the comments underneath the video. Okay, problem number 8 says, which expression is equivalent to x to the 9th, y, z to the 4th power, raised to the 5th. So each one of those is raised to the 5th power. And so then you have the answers. So using the rules from the formula chart, if you have x raised to the m power and then raised to the nth, that would be the same thing as multiplying m times n. And so here, if you have x to the 9th raised to the 5th power, that would be 9 times 5. That would be x to the 45th power. Because what you have here is you have x to the 9 5 times. So if I was to write that 5 times, you see that what we really have is you have 9 added 5 times. 9 times 5 is 45. So I need an answer that has x to the 45th power. It could be h or it could be j, but it cannot be f, and it cannot be g. So the next thing that we have is we have y to the 1st power. It doesn't have a 1, but it's y to the 1st, raised to the 5th power. So that would be y to the 5th power. So it looks to me like it would be j, and z to the 20th, 4 times 5 is 20. So the question is it y to the 1st or y to the 5th? Well, in here you have y to the 1st, but it's raised to the 5th, so it has to be y to the 5th power. So therefore, for number 8, the answer should be j. And I'll put a star on that one. And so I'm going to ask you, is there a way that you can check this one? How can you check? Well, some students will use some numbers for x, y, and z. And they might say, what if x is 1.1? What if y was 2? And what if z was z to the 4th raised to the 5th? I'm going to use a small number like 1.5 or something like that. So you can make up some numbers, and then you can run these numbers through here and see what you get, and then run the same numbers in here in the original question and make sure that you get the same number. Now, this is a way that after you're done with the test, you want to go back and check. You can always check by plugging in some numbers for x, y, and z. Okay? Now, there is a caution there. If you plug in numbers like x equals 1 and y equals 1 and z equals 2 or something like that, you might get the wrong answer even though it's correct. So I would recommend using just some decimals, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.5. This way, there's no coincidence that when you check, it is the right answer. And that would be answer J. Okay, let's take a look at the next one, number 9. The graph of the linear function g passes through the point -7 and -4 and 6, 7, 6. And so we have this point here and this point here. What is the slope and the y-intercept for this graph? So let's say this point here would be x1 and y1, and over here this could be x2 and y2. So if we take y2 minus y1, we're going to have 6 minus a -4, this difference in the y's. And then x2 minus x1 is going to be 7 minus a -7. So 6 minus a -4, that's going to be 10. And 7 minus a -7, minus makes that a plus. So 7 plus 7 is 14. And you can reduce that by 2. So that would be 2 into 10 is 5. And 2 into 14 is 7. So it looks to me like the slope is 5/7. And so you have a slope of 5/7 here. And you have a slope of 5/7 here. And so for number 9, I don't think the answer could be C or D because the slope is 7/5 here and 7/5 there. So is the y-intercept 1 or -1? Where does it cross the y-axis? Well, it's up here. It's at 1. So the y-intercept is at 1. So for number 9, the answer is B. Okay. And there is another way, of course, that you can check for slope. And you can take the graph that they give you here and look for some points on this line. And you could take rise over run and do some calculations. And you could calculate this. And the rise winds up being 5, 6 minus 1. And the run is 7 from 0 to 7. So rise over run is 5/7. There's your slope. And so slope is rise over run. If you're familiar with that, then you can take the graph and calculate this is 5 and this is 7. And there's your slope. Or you can use this formula, which we did here is we did y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So difference in the y's, difference in the x's. This is your rise, this is your run. Slope was 5/7. Okay. Problem number 10 says, what is the solution to this equation? And some of you can use the calculator and solve for y, or solve for x. And some of you might be tempted to plug in the answers for that, but you can check that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part right here, and I'm going to distribute 4 times y, that's 4y, and then 4 times a -3, that's -12, plus 19, and then you have equals to 8 times 2y, that's 16y, and 8 times 3, distributive property, that's going to be 24, and then you have a plus 7. So I'm going to combine like terms here. I'm going to add these two right here, and I'm going to add these two right here. So I'm going to have 4y. 19 minus 12 is 7. So I have 4y plus 7. That's equal to what? I'm going to add 24 plus 7, which is 31. So I'm going to have 16y plus 31. So now I need to get all the y's on one side, and I need to get all the numbers on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 4y here, and I'm going to subtract 4y here, since I have most of the y's on the right-hand side. So I'm going to have 12y. And then on the right-hand side, I need to subtract the number, so I'm going to subtract 31 here and subtract 31 there. And so I now have 7 minus 31, that's going to be negative 24. So 12y is equal to a negative 24. So if you divide by 12 on both sides, you get that y is equal to a negative 2. So for number 10, it looks like the answer should be H, y equals negative 2. So at this point, some of you might be thinking, well, could we have used a calculator? Yes, you could have. And you could use a solver and you could solve that. Or you could check. How do you check? Well, let's take a negative 2 and substitute for y wherever you have a negative 2. So I'm going to have 4 times negative 2 minus 3 is a negative 5 plus 19. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to have negative 20 plus 19, that's a negative 1. And see if that's the same thing on the right-hand side. I'm going to plug a negative 2 here. Negative 2 times 2 is a negative 4. Negative 4 plus 3 is a negative 1. Negative 1 times 8 is a negative 8 plus 7. And that's a negative 1. So negative 1 equals negative 1, that's correct. So you can check by plugging back in. And that's one way of checking. There's many other ways of doing this problem. Just whichever way is easier for you, I would recommend. Okay, number 11. You have a exponential function, and in the graph shows the number of game consoles sold in millions since 2009. And the number of years. So initially at 0, they had 25.5, and then 1 year later they had 15.3. These are in millions. In year 2 they had 9.18, and then year 3 looks like close to 5. And so it looks like it's going down, it's decreasing. So in an exponential function that is going left to right, is going down like that, it's a decreasing function. An exponential function that's going like that is increasing. And so in any exponential function, you're going to have something like a is a multiplier and then b to the x. And in this case, when it's going down like that, b is less than 1. And when it's going up like this, b is greater than 1. And that's actually your multiplier. So if we take a look at our multipliers here, 25.5, 0.6, 25.5, and 6.12. Do you see a number there less than 1? Well, it looks like 0.6. Okay. And how did they get the multiplier? Well, if you go from year 0 to year 1, you have 25.5 and you're going to 15.3. So if you take 15.3 and you divide it by 25.5, your multiplier is about 0.6. Also, in year 2, you went down to 9.18 and you divide that by 15.3, and that's also about 0.6. So you're multiplying by 0.6, and then by 0.6, and then by 0.6, and by 0.6 each year. And so it has to be 0.6 to the x. So the answer should be B. And I know somebody's thinking, well, is there a way that we can check that? Yes, you can. So in this one, you can have your calculator as y is equal to 25.5, 0.6 raised to the x power. When x is 0, 0.6 to the 0 is 1. 1 times 25.5 gives you this right here, 25.5. When x is 1, you get this right here. When x is 1, y is 15.3. And when x is 2, you get this answer. Y is 9.18. So that's a quick and easy way to check. Regardless how you do it, the answer is going to be answer B. For problem number 12, you have a table of some values, and it says that a ball is placed in a machine that throws the ball up in the air. The table represents some points in the graph of the function that models the ball's distance from the ground with respect to time since the ball has been thrown. What is the range for this situation? What is the range of values? And so in this case, it looks like a ball is thrown up in the air and then comes back down, and it has a maximum. So if we look at the maximum distance from the ground, we see that right here is the maximum. So the maximum is 7.66 when after 1.25 seconds. So that's going to be the maximum right here, which is the vertex. And then at 1.5, you're going to have 7.35 is the height. It's coming back down. At 1.75, you have 6.43. Now, before the 1.25, at 1 second, you have 7.35. So you notice these two are the same. And at 0.75, you have these two are the same. So right in the middle is your vertex, which is your maximum. And the maximum height in meters is 7.66. And the lowest it could be is at 0. Starts from ground 0 and goes up to a maximum of 766. So 0 is here, and then 7.66 is the maximum height. And so that is the range. And the range is the y values. So if they were asking for a domain, this is like your x and this is your y. So the graph here would be the distance here, and this would be the time. So if these are x values, that's your domain. If these are your distance, this is your range. So your range would be from 0 up to the maximum, which is 7.66. So looking at the answers, all real numbers greater than or equal to 0, but less than or equal to 7.66. So the answer for number 12 has to be H. Okay. So we're on number 13. Lucky 13 says that which graph best represents a solution set to this system of inequalities? X plus y is less than 1, and x minus y is less than or equal to 2. So if you look at the lines where they intersect, they all have the same point of intersection between 1 and 2 below the x-axis. B is also between 1 and 2 below the x-axis. C is between 1 and 2 below the x-axis. D is below 1 and 2 below the x-axis. So they all have the same lines. The only difference is they have different shaded regions and different dashed or dotted lines. So what we need to do, let's take a look at the first line, x plus y is less than 1. And identify x plus y is less than 1. That means that y is less than a negative x plus 1. So all I'm doing is I'm moving the x to the right-hand side, so y is less than a negative x plus 1. That's the first equation. And that has a negative slope, and the y-intercept is at plus 1. So if we look at this, this could be the equation. It's a dashed line. It can't be this one because it's a solid line. It can't be this one because it's a solid line. It could be this one here, except that it's in the wrong region. We want less than, so it should be everything below. So it should be everything below this line. And over here, if we're looking for below this line, we're over here. So evidently, this is not going to work. So it looks to me like the answer should be A. We haven't taken a look at the second equation. X minus y is less than or equal to 2 is going to be this one right here. And so what we can do is find a point here. The origin is 0, 0, and it's in both, so we have to plug in 0, 0. 0 plus 0 is less than 1. Yes, it is. So it checks on the first one. And do the second equation, 0 minus 0, and that's less than 2. Yes, it is. 0 minus 0 less than or equal to 2, and it is. 0 is less than 2. So if you pick a point here at 0, 0, which is the origin, and plug it into both inequalities, and if it's true in both, then that verifies and confirms that for number 13, the answer is A. And we know for sure we got that one right. Okay? So 13 was A. Problem number 14 is a problem where you're given a function, p of x equals to negative 4 times x minus 15 squared plus 2. What is the value of p of 7? Record your answer and fill in the bubbles. So this is not a multiple choice question, but it's one that you can figure out by using your calculator. So p of 7 means what is the value of the function when x equals 7? Okay, so when x equals 7, p of 7, we're going to plug in, for every x that we see, we're going to plug in a 7. So you're going to have negative 4, parentheses, x is 7, minus 15 squared, and then plus 2. Okay? So with your calculator, you're going to do the parentheses first. 7 minus 15 is a negative 8. And this part right here, negative 8 squared, negative 8 times negative 8 is a positive what? 64. And then you multiply that by negative 4 and then add 2. So negative 4 times 64 is a negative 256. And then add 2 plus 2 at the end is going to be a negative 254. So your answer should be negative 254. And as a way of checking, you can come back later after the test before you finish. Go back and redo this one and plug in 7 back in there. Use your calculator and check and make sure you got it right. Okay, for number 15, a customer paid a total of $6 for 68 copies at a print shop. Some of the copies are black and white and the rest were color. Each black and white cost 8 cents and each color copy costs 15 cents. Which system of equations can be used to find B, the number of black and white, and C is the number of color copies that paid for at the print shop? So how many copies were there total? Well, there's 68 total copies, and so that means that B plus C has to be, the number of copies has to be 68. Okay, and so here it says B plus C is 6, so I don't think it could be that one. And answer C also says B plus 6 equals to 6. I don't think it could be that one. And so, but we do know that it's B plus C is 68, so it could be answer B or answer D. So it depends on how much they're worth. Well, black and white is 8 cents, okay? And the color copy is 15 cents. So is it going to be answer B or answer D? Well, let's go back. Black and white is 8 cents, so it should be 0.08 B. And color copy is 15, so it should be 0.15 C. 0.08 B, 15 C. Now these look very similar, so you have to be very careful when you're working through this test because it looks like they switch them around all the time, and you have to read it very carefully. So 0.08 B and 0.15 C, okay? So it looks like the answer should be, for number 15, it should be answer D. And that was the correct answer for this. Okay, we're now on number 16. This will be the final one for this video. I don't want to make the video too long for you. We have another quadratic function that is graphed. It's shown on the grid. And it opens down like this. That means the leading coefficient would be negative. And if it opens up like this, that means that the leading coefficient would be positive. So in this case, well, all of the leading coefficients are negative, so that doesn't help us a whole lot. But we do know that the y-intercept up at the top, when x is 0, y is 8, it looks like this is at 8. So when x is 0, y is 8. That's a point on the graph. We also know there's an x-intercept that when x is 4, y is 0. And there's another one here, when x is negative 4, y is 0. So these are all the important points. And your maximum value, by the way, is at 0, 8, at the y-intercept. The maximum value of this function is 8. This is the maximum. All you need to know is which function is represented by the graph. Well, you have some points there. You could graph any of these and match it up to that, and look at the table and see if you have these x and y intercepts. Looking at answer J, if x is 0, y is 8. So it could be this one. It cannot be this one, because if x is 0, you get 16. It cannot be that one. X is 0, you get 16. If x is 0, you get 8. So it's either H or J. So which one is it? X or J? Well, let's take a look at 4, 0. When x is 4, 4 squared is 16. Minus 16 plus 8, it will not give you 0. So I don't think that one works. So try H. Negative 1/2, 4 squared plus 8. Does that give you 0? So what I'm doing is I'm plugging in this number, 4, 0, into the equation. 4 squared is 16, and times 1/2 is 8, so you have minus 8 plus 8. That equals 0. That is correct. So you want to check this one? Well, what you can do is, it looks like for number 16, the answer is H. You can graph this, y equals negative 1/2 x squared plus 8, and then you can look at the graph and match it with that graph, or you can go to the table and look for a table of values where you have your x and y intercepts, and it matches with these. And if it does, which I know it does, then your answer is H. Okay. And I hope you've learned something today. That's the first 16 of the STAAR Test, Algebra 1, 2021. It was given May 2021. And make sure you hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe. And also smash the bell. And thank you for now. Thank you.